Probably should have showed the countdown first. All right, we are live. So, welcome everybody to another episode of This Week Unloaded. We're up to what episode is this? I don't remember. Let me look. Did I put the episode number?
285.
285. I think that's the wrong number. I think I may have forgot to change the number. Because I think this is supposed to be 286. I think last weekend was 285. Oh well, I'll have to fix that afterwards. Can't do nothing about it now while the show's live. So, yeah, we're just going to have to pretend that we're on the right number and that I didn't screw up. Anyway, I am your host, Rich White, and with me, as you heard, is Mr. Gizzard Gary. How are you tonight, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Let's see, who do we got on the YouTube side? We got Ron 2A Matters and Gizzard Gary out there. So if you're out there, let us know. And it says we got the one person on Rumble. I have no idea if anybody's watching over on X because this thing doesn't like to tell us things about X. So let me go over and check X here.
I see Garage Guy just showed up on the YouTube side.
Evening, Garage Guy. And it says we got 3 people watching over on X. So evening to you, those of you over there watching. Oh. What do you want to start with? Because I got the Vatican and or I should say the Pope versus Trump feud, or we can talk Star Trek stuff first, because that was also. So what do you think? Should we start with the Trump Vatican or Trump
Yeah,
Pope?
let's do that. Let's dig into that. That ought to be fun.
Okay. And those of you who are observant will notice that there is a thing here for callers. So at some point during the show, I will put out a link out there, and you all will be able to have a chance to voice your opinions on things. But first, let's start with the Trump and Pope thing. And for those of you who don't know, the President Trump and the Pope Leo, what's his number?
14.
Leo the 14th have been having a back and forth of sorts, where the Pope complains about something that the Trump administration is doing, and then Trump, of course, being Trump, he's got to respond and say something, I don't know, insulting, inflammatory. It's Trump being Trump. Rob's asking, did Trump club the Pope yet? No, I don't think so. I don't think he's smacked him yet.
I
But
don't think so.
I don't think they've been in range of each other yet. So it's
Well,
always
the Pope
possible.
carries around this big stick, so you might be careful. He's got a staff in his hand, He
Yeah,
could whack you with that thing.
yeah. We'll have the Swiss Guard versus the Secret Service.
He'll
That'll
hit you
be
with his
interesting.
Pope sickle.
Hmm. Hmm. So the response on Twitter has been interesting, or should I say X, because it's what it is now. Used to be Twitter, formerly Twitter, now X. I have Catholics that I follow over there and get followed back by, and you know, if you're on X, you know how that works. Anyway, I've been seeing a lot of popes. Well, popes, yeah. There's a lot of popes on X. No, well, technically, if you think about it, where the term pope comes from, every bishop prior to uh, the second millennia, the beginning of the second millennia, was called pope. That was a title for the bishop. The reason it now it's only referring to the bishop of Rome, because technically that is the office the pope hold, is bishop of Rome. For those of you who don't know. So anyway, seen lots of posts from various Catholics on X who don't sound very happy with the Pope right now. They think that he needs to stick with matters of the church and not government. And so the question is the Pope, with his political speech, hurting the church, as in, is he hurting the view people have of the Vatican right now? So, what say you, Gizzard, as a Catholic?
uh, I'd have to say so. If you're going by public opinion right now, it's very polarized out there. And I think that's what a lot of Catholics have a problem with is they're catching a lot of the grief for what the Pope is saying, and they don't necessarily agree and want to be drug into the middle of this. And unfortunately, when the Pope speaks, a lot of people think he is speaking on behalf of the church, and not everything he says is necessarily on behalf of the church. Realize, as we were talking about before the show started, he is also de facto a head of state. So he could be speaking in that vein also. He's expressing his opinions, which he's entitled to, but he's a very public figure. Everything he says is going to be taken and ran with by the press, especially when you make it in statements, which he has, which are public statements and stuff like that. That gets amplified. And when people see that on the news, they think, "Oh gosh, the Catholics are after us now," So in that respect, yeah, I'm pretty sure the Catholics are. A lot of them are saying, "Wait a minute, don't drag this in the middle of this."
Basically, pump the brakes there, Pope. You're bringing grief on us, is what you're saying.
Yeah, but it goes even further than that. I mean, I was hearing or I read something on X today about some priest. I don't remember where that actually or it actually came from the archdiocese office basically condemning Trump and stuff like that. And actually, one priest actually said a prayer hoping that the Lord would take Trump. And I'm thinking, wow, that's totally out of line to wish for the death of the president and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, that's not very
So,
Christ-like right there.
so some people, yeah, they hear something that comes out of the Pope's mouth and they take it, they either disagree with it or some people, interpret it as gospel. And in fact, he was not speaking ex cathedra when he said that. But some people take everything he says as doctrinal, which it's not intended to be. He's a man with opinions, just like the rest of us.
Yeah, one thing that surely didn't help was, what was it, 2 weeks ago, I believe it was. You had three cardinals go on 60 Minutes and basically parrot everything the Pope was saying. So I don't think it helps very much when you have cardinals also that are also going out there and saying this kind of stuff, especially not on a prominent network news program like 60 Minutes. Because there's still a lot of people that watch 60 Minutes every Sunday.
I mean, it's one thing to have a view of we should have peace. I mean, obviously, anybody of religious grounds is going to be of that opinion and stuff like that. But to characterize us as, the total bad guys in all this, given everything we know has been going on and everything else with Iran, and all of a sudden we're the bad guys for trying to, we can make that argument and stuff like that. But unfortunately, it doesn't come out that way in the press.
Yeah.
And
It, if you look at the quote that's been cited to the Pope, it, I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember his exact wording, but
yeah, I don't either.
basically, warfare is not godlike, according to the Pope's quote. Now, that begs the question, if that's the case, why did God assist the Israelites in Canaan? Why did God assist the Israelites against the Philistines, particularly Gideon and his 200, who went in and took out, what was it, 10,000 Philistines? King Saul, before he went completely bad. King David, before in his wars against the Philistines, before he went completely bad, and on and on and on throughout the Old Testament. If warfare is not godlike and God frowns on the war bringers, why why did God is not only assist these men in their leadership of during times of war in ancient Israel, why did he tell them to do it?
And a lot of that depends on whether you characterize the U.S. at this point of starting a war, or are we trying to prevent a calamity, which is really what's happening.
Well, a lot of analysts will tell you we've been at war with Iran since 1970. What was it, 7 when the
Yes,
Iran when it started?
yes, we never finished it.
Yeah, Rob also brings up the fact that the Pope has also been degrading the border patrol for going after illegal aliens who he claims are just looking for amnesty. That was another one that the Pope did, and he's asking why hasn't the Vatican taken people in? Yeah, the the Pope who lives behind walls that are meant to keep people out of the
I'm
Vatican
going to say you're
is
not going to fit a whole lot of people in Vatican City.
no, Vatican City is not. To call it a city is kind of a misnomer in and of itself. The place isn't but a couple of buildings. It's not really even a city. I mean, it's in the heart of Rome. It's inside of a city, but it's not in and of itself truly a city. But that doesn't change what Rob said, because if you look at Rob's comment, that what the Pope is doing is giving people the impression that he's a hypocrite. And to be honest, Rob's not completely wrong on that. But again, we're talking about a Chicago liberal, and as a Chicago liberal, he was probably in favor of illegal immigration before he became Pope, and he's probably in favor of it now. Just because he became the Pope like Garrett was alluding to, that's not going to change his own personal beliefs. Correct.
Correct.
So Rob also asked if this is the Pope that's cool with gay marriage and the alphabet people. I don't recall having heard him say anything on that regard. It's mostly been on the Iranian war and border security. Have you heard him say anything on that front?
No.
I know Francis did, but yeah,
Although I will admit, I do not follow the Vatican on social media. I do not see every statement they make. So, believe it or not, I don't. And yes, they are on social media. So
Yes, they are.
they're on
The,
X, they're on Facebook.
the
Yep.
Pope himself has an X account. I hit that button once already. Rumble Studio's not wanting to work properly now. Of course,
Hmm.
I have to wait for callers thing on there. It should be going to work. I may have to refresh this. So give me 1 second. I'll be right back.
Yeah, I've seen that ever since we started. Pack Rat's Attic is out there. Hello, while we're waiting on Rich to figure everything out here.
Okay, now it looks like it's working. Let me copy this. Link shared to clipboard. We will put the link out there in the chat. And anybody who wants to come in and say something, click on that link right there, and you should be able to do so. And I will pin that on the YouTube side. I don't know if I can pin that on.
Although I have heard it doesn't work well if you're on a phone. At
Well,
least that's what Guns and Barbecue says, anyway.
this is different. This isn't to be on the panel. This is a separate thing from the panel itself. That's a separate link. We'll see how this works. If anybody wants to come in and voice their opinions on this topic, there's the link to do so. Let me bring that up so I know if I got anybody in the queue. I do not. So there are no callers yet in the queue. Apparently, I can have 4 callers active at a time. That
Cool.
that'll be interesting. That's 4 extra panelists. That's me, 9 others, plus those 4. That's up to 13 people in here. Wow, that's more than StreamYard
If it works.
if it works. But nobody's called in yet, so
While you were gone, I did see that Pack Rat's Attic is out there.
not even Pack Rat. Moo's out there. I don't know. I don't remember if I said hi to Moo or not.
What's funny is when I logged into Rumble Studio before I clicked your link, and it already showed your program there. So when you sent it to me, it automatically put it in my Rumble Studio. All I had to do was click it.
Oh, cool.
Well,
Yeah, when
Packrat's
I
Addict says he's been following this thing with the Pope. So
well, if you want to try calling in, there's the link. And you can give us your take on a Pack Rat if you would like to.
we'll take caller number one.
We'll take any caller at this point. But figure with this could be an interesting topic to try that out with, if anybody is willing to try and call in. But and then something else that's gotten them a lot of blowback was going to the mosque in Algeria and not visiting Nigeria, where the Christians there are being massacred.
Yeah, I don't understand this all of a sudden alliance with Islam that seems to be happening with the current Pope.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
I don't get it. I don't get it at all.
No. During Ramadan, they created a prayer room for Muslims in the Vatican. Do they get that many Muslims going to the Vatican where they have to create a prayer room for them if it's Islamic prayer time while they're there? It just it just seems
I'm
off.
I'm having to I'm having to guess if you go to the Middle East, they're not going to set aside a Christian chapel for you to pray in. So
No, there's quite a few Muslim countries in the Middle East where it's illegal to have a church. Like back in the 80s and 90s when the oil companies had all the expatriate Americans and British people working their oil fields for them, which I'm sure I would assume they probably still do. They were not allowed in their housing complexes that they had to live in. They couldn't live among the general population. They had to live in basically camps. Granted, they had nice houses in these. It wasn't like they were in the internment camps during World War II or something like that. They had nice houses, but they were not allowed to build themselves a church within that camp. The government of Saudi Arabia would not allow them to do so. If they were to have church services, they had to pick somebody's house and meet there and have the church service in their living room, essentially. So you'd have a bunch of little church services going on in different houses in these camps at any given time on a Sunday or Wednesday or Saturday, depending on what religion they were. And Packrat said spell check got him. He meant to say he hasn't been following it.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, yeah, and the Pope supposedly uh, knelt down on the prayer rug in the mosque and uh, signed their big gold book. And then you got some people saying, "Well, the big gold book that's just a guest book." Not quite. Not everybody that goes into a mosque is asked to sign the big gold book. That has a particular meaning. Basically, it's look who came here and agrees with us kind of thing.
I can
So
honestly say I've never been to a mosque,
I
nor do
have
I ever
not.
plan on going.
I have not either, but I have studied the situation and all that stuff. Yeah, and another one that I mean, I don't know if you want to go down that road or stay on the thing with the Pope or not. But Rob's saying they all sort us out, and that's the whole thing with the left and allying with Islam makes about as much sense as the Vatican doing so. The left is the party of the LGBT stuff, feminism, and all that, and
Yeah,
a
what
couple
was
other
it?
things.
Somebody on X posted today. Some trans person, somebody that's trans from male to female, and says it's not. The United States is not a safe place for people that are transitioning. He says, "I'm moving to another country," and I'm like, "Which one?"
Move to Saudi Arabia, see what happens.
Yeah, that'd be a great idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In essence, the left is aligning themselves with an ideology that disagrees with them on 90% of topics.
Yeah, how about Palestine? You guys are all about this free Palestine stuff. Go there.
Mm, well, we have a history lesson about what happens when the left aligns itself with the Islamic Revolution and the Islamic Revolution wins. The leftists that were siding with them, all of a sudden they're persona non grata. And the Islamists take them out. I know where that you know where that happened. I'm sure you probably know,
Where?
Gary.
Trying to think where.
We were just talking about this country. Yeah, the one the Pope is defended and said that we're aggressors against.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's what happened, folks. For those of you who don't know the history, at the end of the Iranian Islamic Revolution, when Ayatollah Khomeini took power, one of the first things that he did was eliminate his leftist allies that helped him take the country. And now you got the left here in the US and other places in the world, and the Pope seemingly aligning with these people. It's crazy, man. Yeah. Packrat says he's never been in one, but he has taken people there. Yeah, he was working as what, a cab driver or Uber or something at one point.
I couldn't even tell you where the nearest one is, although I know we don't have one in this area.
We don't have one here. The closest we have are a Mormon temple here in town, and then across the bridge in Maryland, a little bit up the 220 from here, there is a Kingdom Hall of the Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah, I think you're reaching a little bit to
Yeah,
compare Jehovah's
they're
Witnesses and
they're
Mormons.
they're all three of them are cults. So that's that was the connection. All three of them, some certain people would call them cults. So
There are
they
people
all,
who call the Catholic Church a cult
yeah,
too.
but the
So,
Catholic Church doesn't follow a false prophet. Those three all do. So there's your other connection. They all have a false prophet.
well, now I don't know about Jehovah's Witnesses. Who are you calling their false prophet?
Oh, the Watchtower.
Oh, yeah, that's not a person anymore.
Well, there was the person that was founded by. I just can't remember. I don't remember the person's name. The
Uh,
person who founded the Watchtower is
Charles
their
Charles Taze Russell.
yeah. They there are Jehovah's Witnesses that call him a prophet. So
Yeah, he's also crazy. But that's the
well,
history of the guy. How many times did he predict the end of the world? Let's see. It was supposed to be 1914, then it was 1925, and
well,
they kept
Muhammad.
moving it back because it never happened. So
Yeah,
said, "Oh, we
Muhammad
were
did the
wrong."
same thing. There was a there's a famous hadith where Muhammad points at a kid who's like maybe 3 years old. It says by the end of this child's life or something along those lines, the end of times will come or something. I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember the exact wording of the hadith, but that's what it amounted to. It didn't happen. So yeah, that's something that these false
And
prophets
what
like to
does the
do is
Bible say
predict
about false prophets? It does warn you.
multiple places,
Hmm.
multiple
There's
times in
gonna
Matthew,
People are gonna come and say
Revelation.
they know what's gonna happen and when, and
Hmm.
avoid these people.
Yeah, they come wearing sheep's clothing, but they're actually wolves. That
Yep.
comes from Matthew. Yeah, and there's warnings in the Old Testament as well. So it also false teachers, not just false prophets, but false teachers, which some people have accused Leo. You said 14th of
Yes.
being falling under the category of being a false teacher. Not necessarily a false prophet, but a false teacher.
Well, if you consider everything coming out of his mouth to be teaching, like
Mm-hmm.
I say, every time he's quoted and stuff like that, if you as a Catholic take that as to how you should live your life because he thought this or he said that, unless he is speaking as a Catholic say ex cathedra or as a voice of Christ, which is very rarely that it happens when the Pope actually
Mm-hmm.
makes a statement on church doctrine. Other than that, it's just talk.
Yeah,
It just is. I mean,
yeah. But the problem is, you do have Catholics that see it to where everything he says is coming from God.
yes, yes, that's 100%, and that's a lot of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yet you do have those too. So I don't believe that believing the Pope is wrong about this or that is any kind of disrespect to the papacy or anything else. It's just people make mistakes. The Pope's a
Mm-hmm.
man.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The Pope is just a human being. But you do get people that put him on a pedestal. It's like,
Same
and
way we have priests that commit sins, we have bishops that
mhm.
commit sins because they're all men and they're not perfect.
You go back to the scripture. Not all every one of the prophets did something wrong. Moses lived long enough to where he saw himself becoming the villain. So yeah, I mean, people are fallible. That includes the Pope. If you're a Catholic out there who doesn't think the Pope is fallible, you need to read what Christ has said. You need to read what the Apostle Paul said. All
And
are
I
sinners
think
and fall short of the glory of God.
I think there are a lot of Catholics that do not understand everything there is to know about their religion.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people haven't studied or don't remember everything they were taught when they were young, haven't looked into, exactly how this should work and everything else. And I think, well, it's the Pope, everything he says is gospel. We have to do exactly what he says on everything. And that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
If there are disputes and he settles them, then yes. But, or you do as Martin Luther did and you leave the church entirely, which he regretted before his death, by the way. He said so.
Well, Martin Luther said a bunch of stupid shit.
He
To
saw
be perfectly
he
honest.
saw he saw the divisions that happened after
Mm-hmm.
he left and stuff like that, and he lamented the fact that he was responsible for all this. And he said this was wrong.
We could do a whole trustees on areas where Martin Luther was wrong or said something that he probably should have kept his mouth shut on.
Or Calvin or any of those people. But yeah, that's
Well,
that's a whole
I'm
nother.
not I'm not a Lutheran or a Calvinist, so there's areas where you look at things that Calvin said, and yeah, he definitely was wrong.
Let's not even
But
get into Joseph Smith.
no, no. And we've had discussions. You know where I stand on Catholicism. So I have problems with all three of them: Calvinism, Lutheranism, and Catholicism, and by extension, Orthodoxy as well. So, but yeah,
service used to be done in Latin, so the common person couldn't understand. Well, it's kind of sort of true, but
Hmm.
fact of the matter is, back in those days, people spoke a lot more Latin than they do now, too.
Not
Uh,
really. Back
some people
then,
took Latin in high school. Um, known
yeah.
from some
If
old
you did,
Catholics and stuff like
I,
that. They knew what they were saying when they were praying in Latin. I mean,
I
it
think
wasn't like
he's
they were speaking gobbledygook or
yeah, but I think he's talking about earlier than that, going way back to the Middle Ages and and farther back. And if you actually look at the area of Judea at the time of Christ and the apostles and the forming of the church, Latin was not the language they were speaking.
no.
They were speaking Greek.
Yes.
With maybe a smattering of Hebrew and Aramaic thrown in. But the main language of that area was Greek, especially when and it kept that way through the Byzantine Empire until the area fell to the Ottomans. So even back then, Latin wasn't that common. Yeah, you start getting up into the age of reason time period, you start having more people that were actually reviving what was starting to be a dead language during the Roman Empire itself. It was only
uh,
mainly in Rome itself where Latin was spoken. Outside of Rome, in the area immediately surrounding Rome, you
but
would,
in the Catholic Church, what they now call the Norvis Ordo, or the English Mass, didn't exist until Vatican II in the early '60s
yeah,
under Pope Paul VI. So before that, my sisters grew up, yeah, where the Mass was entirely in Latin. And there are still people to this day who are traditionalists who insist that that's the only true service. And there are some bigger parishes that still offer the Latin Mass.
yeah, it's crazy. You get the same. You realize you get the same thing in Islam with Arabic. That there's Muslims that say unless you go to Islamic service in Arabic, it doesn't count. If you don't say your prayers to Allah in Arabic, even if you don't speak Arabic, it doesn't count. It's like, how can you possibly mean what you're praying to your God if you don't understand the language that you're giving your prayer in and don't know what the hell you're saying? You get what I'm saying? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
even whether you're Catholic or Muslim, if you're going and you're hearing preaching in a language you don't understand, what good is that preaching doing you? What are you going to take away from that lesson if you don't understand what's being said? It doesn't make sense. Why hold your Sunday service in for what 95% of the world will be a dead language?
But to be fair, a lot of people have misconceptions. During the Latin Mass, the actual homily is given in the language that is spoken in that place. So
Mm,
when the priest is giving his homily, it's going to be in English, regardless of whether the prayers in the Mass are said in Latin or not. So And that was always the case. A lot of
Mm.
people thought, well, the whole thing was written in Latin. Nobody understood a word. Well, not necessarily true. A lot of misconceptions out there.
Mm.
Not that I know. I've never been to a Latin mass, to be honest. I just know what I read and what I've heard.
I've been to one that I can recall, and like you said, when the priest is basically giving his summary of everything, yes, that was in English. Everything else was in Latin, and I didn't understand any of it.
What other denominations would call the sermon.
Yeah,
At a Catholic mass, it's called the homily.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. The sermon is basically the summation of what he is read from the scripture.
That's correct. And his trying to apply it to your life and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah. He's expanding on the gospel message. Yeah.
but I wasn't just targeting Catholicism. I was targeting any religion out there right now that's preaching the less the stories from the holy book in a language that isn't understood by the parishioners or the mosque goers or in Hindu the temple goers. And speak it in a language people are going to understand.
I mean, the majority of the New Testament, as you said, was probably written in Greek.
Yeah,
Uh, unless you read Greek, you're not going to read the original words.
no. Yet most of the Old Testament was written in Hebrew. Some was
That's
written in
correct.
Aramaic. Some of it
Yes.
was written in Babylonian. And then you had the vast majority of the New Testament being in Greek. So yeah, you're unless you speak multiple languages, you're not going to read the Septuagint. You're just not going to be able to because you just and it's not modern Greek; it's ancient Greek, which is slightly different. Now, Vanessa says, "Keep religion the hell away from government." This is why we have the First Amendment. No, it's not.
No, not necessarily. That's not
The
exactly what that meant.
No, the point of the First Amendment was to keep government out of religion, not to keep religion out of government. Do you know that Thomas Jefferson, who is the one that is credited for giving the line separation of church and state, had a prayer meeting every Sunday when he was president, when able, in the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol building?
They just basically didn't want the United States to become basically what England had, which they had a
Right.
state church.
Yep. That was to prevent essentially the establishment of a Church of England here in the United States. That's what
Correct.
the purpose of the First Amendment is.
Yes.
It has been taken out of context by the courts to
Yes.
be what you are referencing it as, Vanessa. That is not what the intent of the writers was.
But what's amazing is you can do like you have. It's pretty easy to go back into the writings of the founders and stuff like that and find what the thought processes were for a lot of what the Constitution, what was written in there, and what the people who wrote it were thinking when they wrote it and stuff like that. So if
Mm-hmm.
you want to get an idea of what they wanted, you can just go back and look.
Mm-hmm.
Most of that stuff's there, but courts don't think that way.
No.
Courts just look at words and try to interpret meanings based on words. And unless you know the story and the thought behind it,
Yeah. And
yes, no
even
religion will be instituted by the US. That's essentially correct. Yes. The
yes, that
government
was
cannot create a religion and make it a state religion. No, they can't.
yeah, that's the whole point. It wasn't to keep religion out of the government, it was to keep the government out of religion. There was a difference. And even the letter where Thomas Jefferson states a separation of church and state is taken out of context. That's not what he was talking about when he wrote that. So, and frankly, Jefferson's thoughts on the matter don't matter because Jefferson wasn't a writer of the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. In fact, Jefferson opposed the Constitution. Jefferson was an anti federalist. And when the Constitution was being debated and the Bill of Rights were being debated, Thomas Jefferson was in France. Him and Thomas Paine, the two Thomases as they were known, were both in France observing the French Revolution.
Guns and barbecues out there. And bless you, by the way.
Thank you. Barbecue says if the First Amendment was to keep religion out of government, that would mean the Second Amendment was to keep guns out of government. Doesn't work. But the First Amendment was not to keep prayer out of school. The First Amendment was not to keep prayer out of the state office building, whatever your state refers to it as. Most refer to it as the Capitol building. It wasn't to keep prayer out of the nation's Capitol building. What it was to keep the FBI from coming into your church and telling you you can't worship here. Packrat said Jefferson rewrote the Bible to his beliefs. It's called the Jefferson Bible. Yes and no. It's more complicated than that. But Jefferson also had other views. So.
He wouldn't have been the first.
No. John Adams had some choice words about Islam back in the day. I mean, it's.
Arguably, even King James had some influence on that translation.
Mm-hmm. Packrat said he tried to join in lately, but Rumble hates him. Did Are you talking about on the pinned link, Packrat? That might have been my fault. Try again and see if it works because I wasn't looking at the queue. If you had tried join in, that may have been my fault.
It's
Yeah,
always
this is
Rich's
something
fault.
new. This is something new. So, and they put it over on the same spot where the chat goes, so it makes it a little bit harder to monitor things.
Now, Guns and Barbecue is not the biggest fan of Rumble.
No. Barbecued. Oh, speaking of him, says most every amendment was designed to protect the rights of the people from being trampled upon by an overzealous government. Correct.
So they wanted to be sure basically they weren't creating the same world that they left.
Mm-hmm.
Not that people didn't try. Not that people aren't still trying.
Packrat said, as a historian, he would like to see an original Bible. You talking about an original compiled Bible? That would be, oh shoot, I can't
Hmm.
remember. Codex Sinaiticus, Codex Vatinicus are the two earliest fully compelled. Because you got to remember, they didn't compile all this into one book until the third century, I believe it was.
That
Before
seems
that,
about right.
yeah, before that, they were using the fourfold gospels, the epistles of Paul, which basically means the letters of Paul, and uh, the Old Testament, the Torah, and the Psalms, the Proverbs, Song of Solomon, all that stuff, as loose books that were not compelled into one large book. So that didn't come till later. So
And the
yeah,
kind of Bible you could buy and take to your home didn't really exist until Gutenberg.
yeah, the Gutenberg
Because
moving
before that, it had
text.
to be hand transcribed, basically.
Yeah. Well, there was a press, but it wasn't anywhere near as sophisticated as Gutenberg's, and it took longer to print still. So it still wasn't going to make it as widely available as what the Gutenberg Bible was because of the moving metal typeface print press that he invented. So we got one person saying that the call-in link did not work for him. Again, this is a new feature, so it's going to have bugs. He says he knows there were books left out. There were books left out because they were determined to be forgeries and not actual text from the period. And there were forgeries that were coming about on that front all the way up until the 14th century. There's one called the Gospel of Barnabas, for example, that was written by a Muslim to try to discredit Christianity.
There's a
And
Gospel of Thomas out there somewhere, too, I believe.
yeah, there's a Gospel of Thomas, there's a Gospel of Mary, as in Mary Magdalene.
Hmm.
There's the Proto Evangelical of James. Um, shoot, I'm trying to remember the Book of Enoch, which was one from before the Gospels were even written. That one goes back to between the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Book of Enoch was written by somebody, and that was determined by the rabbis or the Pharisees and the Sadducees, who were the forebears of the modern rabbinic Judaism. That was determined by them to have been a forgery.
Then, after the Reformation, a number of the books from the Bible were determined to be non canonical outside of the Catholic Church
Hmm.
and were called Apocrypha, which
Yeah,
basically it's there, you can read it, but it's not,
yeah,
it's not good for teaching and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah.
That's why a Catholic Bible contains more books than a
Right.
Protestant Bible does, because
Basically,
Catholics
the
do kept that
Protestant,
stuff.
yeah, Protestants decided to keep them out to hedge their bets. Catholics put them in to hedge their bets and I've heard that from a Catholic priest, where
Yes.
even Catholics aren't sure if they belong or not. But we got a
Now,
caller trying to call in. Let's see. All right, are you there, Ron?
Yeah, I've just come on here to see.
I see DM Foss is on here too.
Yes, DM Foss jumped on. Evening, sir. So, what would what were you calling in for, Ron? What were you?
I'll just see if that link worked for them.
Okay, you're just testing the link. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
It works.
Yay!
Yay! But so you don't. There's not. You don't have anything to add to the discussion. You just want to check the link.
Yeah, I'm just checking the link.
Okay, you can hang around if you want. It's up to you.
That's all right. I jumped off of here.
Okay, well, thanks for being the guinea pig, Ron, and seeing if it worked. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Was he the 10th caller? Did he win?
No, he was the first caller, second attempted caller, as far as I'm aware. Now, there's some speculation on some scholars' parts of whether the Gospel of Mary actually should be in or not. There's some that speculate because of the fact that there was a misogynistic society back then, which it was. I mean, let's be perfectly honest. If that had any credence to why it may have been decided to not place that one in there. So, not have actually having read the Gospel of Mary, I don't know
I
all
have
the
not.
details. So,
I
but
have
that,
seen excerpts of the Gospel of Thomas before.
yeah, there's stuff in the Gospel of Thomas that is,
It's out there.
yeah. And the best part is Muhammad or whoever wrote the Quran copied stories from that and from the proto-evangelical of James as well into the Quran. So,
And then, if you want to take this to the nth degree, then we have the Mormons who basically created their own separate new
well,
testament, another testament of Jesus Christ, they call it,
yeah, and that one's just all over the damn place.
which also contains direct uh, borrowings from the New Testament. Strangely
Mm,
enough, parts of it are.
And from Joseph Smith's insane mind.
Well, if at the beginning of the Book of Mormon, it lists all the witnesses, and it's all his family.
Mm, yeah, that's not uncommon. If you look at the Hadith, they have what they call the isnads at the beginning of every story, and it's basically a list of witnesses, and they were all people that Muhammad was the closest to. And the problem with those is the Hadith didn't start coming about until 200 years after he died. So, and some of the Hadith only have one witness, which, if you go by their theory about the isnad being the chain that shows as true, the one witness would have had to have lived to be what 300 years old to be able to deliver that story 250 years later. It's yeah. Have you been listening to any of what we were talking about, or did you just jump in as soon as and didn't hear anything until now, Foss?
I have not listened.
Okay.
I checked in earlier, but I don't have any comment on the Catholic Pope, so I waited a bit and jumped in.
Okay. Well, have we drug that one into the ground, Gary? Or is there anything else you want to bring up on that point? Or
I think we've hashed it over pretty good.
yeah, I was going to give you, as a Catholic, I was going to give you the final word on that one, because it pertains more to you than it does to me. So,
I think I gave you what I consider to be a knowledgeable Catholic's take on that, which is basically, what I said. The Pope is a man just like any other man and is, entitled to his opinions. And not everything that the Pope says and does should be considered to be direction for the church, but a lot of people misinterpret that. So now, as to whether he ought to shut his mouth and not talk to Trump, that's kind of between him and Trump. I think he's got better things In my opinion, the Pope has bigger fish to fry than to get on to Donald Trump right now. But that's a whole nother story as far as things that need to be fixed within the church itself, which is supposedly his top priority. So,
Yeah.
Does he only fry those fish on Friday?
yeah,
Yeah. So
that's funny. I like that.
during Lent anyway.
That's great.
Barbecue said there's plenty of accounts of people who lived to be 200 to 300 years old in ancient times. That is not at the time of Muhammad, though. But yeah, biblically, you would be correct. I mean, Methuselah was what 940 something like that, according to scripture. So, but
Yeah, they didn't have all those processed foods back then. So
mhm.
the ozone layer was still good and the air was clean.
Well, maybe their years were shorter. Like
That's true.
people were
Yeah.
shorter.
It's possible that, we went around the sun faster back then and the Earth's just been going gradually slower and slower.
Hmm. Now, Rob says the Pope probably needs the press. Well, if you look at the stories, I think the Pope has the press on his side. So there's that.
Much like, I will say this about that, much like Donald Trump, I believe the Pope probably suffers way too much from let's post about this and everything else that we're going to think about. Let's put it on social media. Um, there's too much of that. I don't need to know every thought that's going through Donald Trump's mind. I don't want to know every thought that's going through the Pope's mind.
Mm-hmm.
But it's become that kind of world now. And even anytime anybody has a thought, let's tweet about it. You know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Barbecue says,
that's the cause of a lot of this.
yeah. Barbecue says nobody made it past two. That wasn't the problem. It was the 300 plus part that was the problem. Barbecue. Boomstick's out there. Evening Boomstick. Yeah, we kind of went all. I guess we discussed that in totality. I don't think we can go any farther on the issue with the Pope and stuff. So yes, Gary gets the final word on that one. So I also had in the title of the show Star Trek stuff. So the reason why is I was watching a video yesterday, and they were comparing the Constitution class starship, which would be the USS Enterprise, the original USS Enterprise, and the refit from Star Trek: The Motion Picture and Wrath of Khan as well, because story timeline wise, the original Enterprise in the Enterprise from the motion picture and Wrath of Khan were all the same Enterprise. It had been refit, so it had new warp nacelles and some other technology, new warp drive, that kind of stuff put in there into the original Enterprise's hull, which made the ship look different. And the pylons that the nacelles were attached to were also changed out to something that would be able to handle the newer nacelles. So when you look at the original Starship Enterprise and the Enterprise from the first two movies, that's why those look different, even though they're the same ship.
Yeah, the nacelles aren't as round.
Yeah, they're a lot more square on
I personally I prefer that look, but
the movie look. Yeah, I think
yeah,
the movie looks better too. Yeah. But anyway, the point of the video was they were comparing that Enterprise, the one from the movies, the first two movies, to the Miranda, which that would have been the class of ship that the USS Reliant in Wrath of Khan was. Which ship do you think is bigger? Gizzard, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, which ship, just looking at the two of them, do you think's bigger? The Constitution, aka the Enterprise, or the Miranda, aka the Reliant.
Would have been great if you
I
showed pictures.
yeah,
Well, Gary's supposed to be the Star Trek geek. I can find pictures. Hold on. I
you're the
had
one that watches this newer stuff. I've never seen any of it.
this is a video on YouTube that was comparing the two of them.
The USS Carmen Miranda.
Problem is, I got to find the one from Wrath of Khan. There's been umpteen different USS Enterprises.
It's been a year or two since I've seen that movie.
Personally, I always like to look at the see. Let me see if I can find a pic. I got a better idea what to look for.
The saucer section
This is
was a
the
heck of a lot bigger on the later versions of the Enterprise
I'm trying to see if I can get a.
because, as I recall, they said how many people were on that ship. The original Enterprise only held, what, 430 people or something like that?
Something like
And
that.
the newer one held considerably more than that and had a
this is
detachable saucer section.
But that was the D. Yeah. Yeah, each consecutive Enterprise gets bigger until you go from the Galaxy to the Sovereign class. The Sovereign class is actually a little bit smaller than the Galaxy. That would
this is
be
what
the
show prep is for. Having all this ready.
well, when I put this show together today. So
Losers make excuses, winners create solutions.
I wish they had a side by side picture, but I guess this is close. About the closest I'm going to get. And these look to be about scale, so we'll use this picture. It's actual Johnny Lightning toys of each of them, collectibles of each of them. Johnny Lightning tends to be to scale, so we'll use these. Let me go here.
There's another phrase I used to hear: those who can do, those who can't teach.
Yeah. So I guess about the best I could find for it. And so
That little thing in between them looks like an old time router. The
this
antenna sticking.
that's the stand that the Enterprise is on.
Oh, okay.
What's cool is if you look at the Enterprise, it actually has the battle damage from the fight right
That's
there
what I
on the
have.
side.
Not
Huh?
not the not this one, but the model I have has the battle damage.
Looks like Reliant has some damage on it too. But yeah, these are to scale. So which one do you think is larger out of the two ships?
Well, if they're not far away from each other, I'd say the Reliant.
Yeah, if you didn't have one substantially closer to the camera than the other, kind of hard to tell.
Just take a wild guess.
I did.
I know you did. Gary didn't.
They look almost the same to me. If you're talking about the saucer section.
No, we're talking about the whole ship.
Well, obviously, the further away one is much longer.
Yeah, I think you need to define what you're looking for a little better.
Okay, by area, which one do you think has the larger
Tonnage? going to stick with the Reliant.
And we're talking total area, so that would include both halls on the Enterprise, not just the saucer section. Foss says Reliant. What about you, Gary?
Well, I don't know if the bridge, because I believe the bridge on the Reliant is smaller.
No, the bridges were the same size.
Were they?
Yeah.
Oh. Maybe it's just the way they shot it that it was
Yeah,
tighter.
they had the same style bridge on both ships. That was another thing that got refit was the bridge on the Enterprise.
I'll just stick with the Reliant. I said that already.
And Gizzard, you there?
Yeah,
What's your choice, man?
I'm going to agree with Foss on this one.
Yes, you're both correct. It is the Reliant. Even though the Enterprise, because it has the two halls, a lot of people think the Enterprise is larger. If you go by just surf the total area of both ships, the Reliant is twice as big as the Enterprise on its total area. If I remember right, what the video was saying, because of the most of the secondary hull on the Enterprise is taken up by warp core, so it has a lot less actual usable area than what the Reliant does. Which is why by the time you get to the next generation, the Miranda class were being used as transports and not actually being used for the purpose of actual battleships or warships anymore. When you get to the Battle of Wolf 359, they had to press the Mirandas back into service as warships because they got their butts handed to them by the Borg. That was the battle where they first encountered the Borg.
See, I always thought that John McEnroe was the first person to encounter the Borg.
Well, that was Jan Borg, not the same guy. Bjorn Borg, whatever his name was. Anyway,
That's a good reference, Gary.
yes. Rob said it's all gibberish to him. Moose says Apollo 13 was bigger. No, not quite. Apollo 13 would have fit into a shuttlecraft. But yes. Miranda is bigger than what it looks. What throws everybody off with the Enterprise in the movie is that the Enterprise has the double hull. You got the saucer section and then the secondary or engineering hull. And that,
I would guess that there are very few people who have ever considered this question.
oh no, my friends and I, we used to argue this over which one was bigger. I always said the Miranda was bigger. They're like, no, the Enterprise is bigger. That's why it's got two hulls because it's a bigger ship. It's like you realize when you go by area that's not a consequence of whether it has a single hull or a double hull.
You could realize how much wasted space there was on the Enterprise, too. I mean, they had entire holodecks on there for crying out loud.
Not on the Wrath of Khan Enterprise. Those didn't come about until Next Generation.
Let's not forget 10 forward.
And again, that was on the Enterprise D. But the Enterprise D was different than the original Enterprise. The original Enterprise was designed to be an explorer and a warship. The Enterprise D was designed to be a symbol of the Federation and the Starfleet. It basically was an ambassadorship, if you will. It wasn't designed primarily for with warfare in mind, but to go out and interact with new races and whatnot.
They had
Which is why,
families on board.
yeah, which is why I was going to say it's why you had families and you had things like 10 Forward and um, other such things. And the whole point of the saucer section being separable was you would get all the families and diplomats and everything into the saucer section, and it would separate and act as a giant lifeboat instead of trying to get them all into escape pods like you would have had to have done on the original Enterprise if you had all those people on there. Then the uh, secondary hull on the Enterprise D became the warship part of the ship. While the saucer section was escaping, the engineering hull or secondary hull of the Enterprise D was what you would fight whatever was attacking you. That was the intent of the ship. You only see it in use a couple of times in the entirety of the Next Generation saga. I think once on in an episode of the show, and then once in one of the movies.
There is I don't know if you are familiar with the YouTube channel Laser Pig. He does military stuff. But he did a video on basically why the USS Defiant is stupid and useless. And he convinced me.
What was his reasoning?
Basically, it was built to fight the Borg using weapons that the Borg can defeat. So the Defiant, they added more of those weapons that aren't good against the Borg. It's a badass ship, but used for the wrong purpose.
Well, did he cover the fact that the Defiant can change its weapon frequency, which offsets the Borg ability to combat it?
You'd have to watch it. Um,
Well, if he didn't, then he missed the key part of the Defiant. That's why I was asking. If he overlooked that, then yeah, he'd be right. Plus, the Defiant's so small, it wouldn't do very well against a Borg cube anyway.
he also did a video on why the A-10 is not a good um, close attack plane. And yeah, I mean, it's another thing that's badass, but has a lot of problems. I think it has the highest friendly fire head count of any plane.
Oh, if you look at the A10, one of the biggest problems with it, it doesn't have a combat radar.
Yeah, that was one of the things he brings up, where you have to basically be looking at what you want to hit, but you can't really see what you want to shoot at. And the impact area is so large for it that you can't do danger close without hitting friendly forces.
Yeah. And what makes it worse is it was designed for close support originally in counterinsurgency operations. Originally, the A-10 was not designed for use as an anti-tank aircraft. It was supposed to be close support aircraft, but it doesn't work so well, which is why they transferred it over to being an anti-tank weapon.
But sorry to sidetrack the conversation.
Oh no, you didn't. That was relevant. We're just talking Star Trek nonsense now, because that's what I've.
And
So it could be
Wrath of
anything.
Khan proves that a sequel can be good.
Yes, in fact, Wrath of Khan proves that the sequel can be better. And remember, up until Star Trek 6, the original crew movies all proved that to be the case. The sequels were always better than the
I will
preceding.
disagree with you. I
Huh?
two is the best. I liked one. I know it's slow pacing and people have a problem with V'ger. I didn't, but I don't care for basically any of the other movies, especially the the whale movie. I really don't like that one.
It was better than
Four.
3.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Four was
was a
better than 3. So the thing is, it's the movies. The even number movies are better than the movies that precede them. Is what the lore is. But if you look at it, 2 was better than 1. 4 was better than 3. 6 was better than 5.
and the next generation movies. I didn't really care for them. They weren't bad, but they were basically extended episodes. Kind of. I think part of the problem was switching to digital. So for me, digital kind of takes me out of the movie experience where the frame rate is different, so it's closer to a stage play look rather than the immersive movie. And that might just be that, that's what I'm used to. Kids who didn't grow up with that may not have the same experience as I do.
Mm-hmm. But since you brought up the next generation movies, Genera- Generations was not as good as First Contact, which was the first Star Trek uh, Next Generation movie. So even there, those two movies it holds.
Then the whole Kelvin timeline thing, they're
Oh
fun,
God,
what they call popcorn movies, but they're not. To me, they're not Star Trek. In no way
no,
are they
they're
Star
not.
Trek.
They're not. Nothing at the last Star Trek was Enterprise. Everything else is Kelvin timeline or Kurtzman Trek, and it's not. It's not the best.
I haven't watched any of that. I watched the first episode, the first half of the first episode, and then refused to watch any more of it.
Of what
Of Discovery.
I didn't watch any of Discovery. I heard too many people talking shit about it. Like, yeah, I'm not even going to bother watching that.
Um, there's, yeah. I mean, yeah. I
It,
would have been more interested in a show about Michelle Yeoh captaining a starship than um,
but that's not even what her series was. And I think that her series didn't even get made into a series. They just made it into a movie. Basically, she was Section 31, which was the spy section of Starfleet or
that.
something in the Kelvin timeline.
I the whole Section 31 that kind of came out of Deep Space Nine, which Deep Space Nine is my favorite series out of the TV
Mm-hmm.
shows. But it to me it started the downfall of Star Trek, because it was kind of there was a lot of criticism of the upbeat um, tone of Star Trek, which is what Roddenberry wanted. A bright future for mankind. So they stole Babylon 5 script when Babylon 5 was being shopped around. They looked at it and didn't take it, but they stole the elements of the script to make Deep Space Nine. And they made it darker and started introducing a lot of non Star Trek ideas, which it still is my favorite. But you see like the section 30, section whatever it is, um, Cisco doing things that are um, underhanded in order to get done what needed to get done, and it it starts to stray from the ideals of Star Trek.
Kirk wasn't always on the up and up. There were many times where Kirk would violate the Prime Directive and stuff. So I mean,
Well, everybody throughout
yeah,
all the series,
yeah,
basically they say these are the prime directives, and then they ignore them
mm.
when they need to.
Yeah, they treat it more of as a guideline.
From what I hear, all the new Star Trek things, they basically are striking all their sets, shutting everything down,
Yes,
laying everybody off.
yeah. There's yeah, it, it was canceled after the first season. Starfleet Academy was canceled. That they're only going to show the second season because it's already been filmed. But yeah, there's been a lot of YouTube channels that cover sci-fi and stuff that been posting videos today that they're auctioning off all the sets. You could buy pieces of the sets from Starfleet Academy, like the captain's chair and stuff. But who'd want that after what's her face had her bare feet all over it? Never mind. Don't answer that question. Another.
There's plenty of people out there.
Oh yeah.
Oh, what do you think about Voyager?
Voyager wasn't too bad. It's not my favorite. If there was nothing else on, I'd sit down and watch it.
I couldn't stand Voyager. I the only part of Voyager kind of pretty much that I liked was the relationship between Ensign Kim and the other dude. You know, their friendship.
Mm-hmm.
That was nice. Um, and I didn't mind Phlox, the doctor. Other than that, there's I didn't like Janeway as a captain. You know, plucky Mrs. Colombo. I
Mm-hmm.
just didn't care for.
Yeah, if I were to list the what was it first five? It was a five series. Yeah, the first five series in order from best to worst. Voyager would be last. Then Enterprise. Then I don't know the top. I really like the other three. I don't know if I could pick one of those three in an order and say which one was worse. I really like Deep Space Nine. I really like Next Generation. I really like the original series. Those are hard to pick which were to be the best in order out of those three. But the other two, oh, definitely Voyager and Enterprise were the bottom two of those five.
Yeah, I would probably put the original first, just because that's the one I saw first. That's if you say Star Trek, that's what I think of. It's not my favorite, but I would still put that first, and then I would put Deep Space Nine, and then Next Generation. Uh, Probably Enterprise, then Voyager.
Enterprise wasn't bad. The worst part about Enterprise was its damn theme song. Its theme song was not Star Trek. It's the only Star Trek series whose theme song has words. It just there was just something about its theme just always seemed off. You know what I mean?
It was okay. I liked the characters. I didn't I had the same problem with Jolene Blaylock that I did with Seven of Nine. You know, basically they're in tight fitting, you know, outfits where you look at their ass all episode. That seems to be their main purpose.
Yeah, it's called
That
fan service.
that's I didn't care for that.
You mean like Lieutenant Troy?
Oh no, Lieutenant Commander.
Whatever. Your outfit's commanded attention too.
There's a big difference between uh, 709 and what T'Pol and Troy outfits. The first season, yeah, she had the skirt, but then she went to the regular uniform that everybody else is wearing.
Not always. She had that one outfit that she wore through this course of this series that definitely was showing off some cleavage.
From what I heard, uh, she was on the cruises. You know, the cruises they'll run where they'll have this celebrities from the show.
Mhm.
It was probably before she was married, but what I heard, she would bang the groupies on the cruises.
Alrighty then.
And she in interviews, I've heard her talk about her, herself being kind of randy,
Mhm.
as the British would say.
Hmm. Yeah, okay. Yeah, she could have been an info. I mean, it's entirely possible. Actors are just people too. Like the Pope and all that. Back into where we were at earlier.
So you're saying the
People's
Pope
just
is
people.
acting?
No, I'm saying the Pope is a people.
Oh, he's papal.
He's a papal people. So, which ship did you like the best?
Out of all the ships or out of the Enterprises?
It can be any.
The Defiant.
The one that you just said wasn't very good. The Defiant was badass. I'm not gonna lie. That
It
ship was.
was.
It was when they debuted the Defiant and Worf was in command of it. That was just freaking awesome. How about you, Gary?
It's hard to say, really. I mean, each of them had their charm, if you will. I guess the one I saw the most would be the Enterprise D.
Oh, I'd like to amend an earlier answer.
Hmm.
I did like Undiscovered Country. I for me, I would put that as number three.
Yeah, that was Star Trek 6. So I'm saying if you actually look and you just go by pairs of movies, like 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, the even number movies were better than the odd number movies. It's just weird the way that worked out. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with the Defiant as well because that little ship was badass. But an honorable mention will go to the Ferengi Decora. You don't really get to see it that much. It was just shown a couple of times in Next Generation, and you wouldn't think of the Ferengi as being having this badass warship, but they really did. The Decora is the one that opened up and had like a combat mode to it. It would just it
That
almost beat.
Ferengi, the Ferengi was a huge misstep in Next
Mm,
Generation. I think they got it right when they changed the Ferengi in Deep Space Nine, where
mm,
they just were not a good. They were supposed to be the next big bad guy, but they were
yeah,
not good at that role.
no, which is why they dropped them as that role. But their ship, the Decora, was badass. It really was. It almost looked like a giant predatory insect was the basis for it, or the design, what they designed the ship after. It was really cool looking. I actually have that ship in Star Trek Online on one of my characters, and it had this ability where it could temporarily disable other ships' engines and stuff on in the show. I mean, not just in the game, but in the show, it could temporarily disable ships' engines and causing their shields and everything to shut down, which is how it almost beat the Enterprise D in the one episode. Let's go the other route. Least favorite ship design.
Ew. I don't know. I didn't care for the God, I forget the name of the ship, but in Next Generation, when the Klingons went through the Civil War,
Mm-hmm.
the command ship of I can't think of his name.
Talking
The
about the Nev car. Think so? Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, it because it doesn't look like a warbird.
Are you talking about the Romulan ship?
No, I'm getting everything mixed up.
Yeah, Warbirds were Romulan.
Bird of prey, I meant, not warbird.
Well, command ship wouldn't have been a bird of prey. That would have been a battle cruiser. What the Klingons used for their command ships. Bird of prey were the little things that had the cloaking devices that would smack people from out of nowhere. You know, the one that Kirk and the Enterprise crew stole in Star Trek 3. But yeah, I think I know what ship you're talking about. I think that's the Nevgar or something like that. Battle cruiser.
Yeah, Gowron's ship.
Yeah, that's what it is. That was a Nevgar, big, huge battle cruiser. How about you, Gizzard? Least favorite ship design.
Oh wait, but before Gizzard answers, Oh, never mind. Go ahead and answer. Sorry, Gizzard. I forgot what I was going to say.
I'm going back to one of the original missions. I'm going back to the Jupiter 2. I thought that was the stupidest damn design of any spaceship I ever saw in my life.
Are we talking Lost in Space here?
Oh, yeah.
Well, we're talking
You
Star
ever,
Trek, not Lost in Space, man. Jeez.
did you ever see how big the lower decks were in that thing when they went down there, where the
There
engines were
was,
and stuff? And it was huge. And I'm like, this saucer section landed on the ground a number of times,
yeah,
and it isn't that big. How the hell
yeah.
did they get this?
Lost in Space, the ship was not to scale.
It's bigger on the inside.
Yes, it's the TARDIS
Well,
of craft.
but when they landed, and conveniently enough, it had a sliding door where you could just walk out the front of the saucer section, which is, why would you design that? It was never designed to be going in and out that way. You know, it was designed to be entered from the bottom. Obviously, it had landing props and everything, but no. And when they walked in and out of it, it didn't look that big. Once it was crashed on a surface, it's just the size of a mobile home, basically.
Mm,
And
it
yeah,
was,
that didn't work out.
yeah,
But they
Jupiter.
crash landed that thing and was able to take off with it a number of times.
Mm, yeah, it was a shell with extra dimensional spaces inside of it.
Well, it was never actually
For
designed to.
for the Voy- either the Voyager USS Voyager is it's a frog. It looks like a frog.
Mm-hmm.
I've
Yeah,
never
that
liked
ship
the
was.
look of the Voyager.
No, I never did either. Voyager's just really weird looking ship.
Or in the God, what was the name of that? In the two-part conclusion to Next Generation, Beverly ship, the Pasteur, looks like a Mr. Microphone.
Oh yeah, that was one of the science. The science ships always look like crap in Star Trek. If you look at the anytime a science ship shows up, and that includes Voyager. Voyager was a science ship. They all look like shit.
Why did the nacelles move? There is no reason for the nacelles to
No,
move.
it's the only ship where the nacelles moved, except for on the god. No, not even the bird of prey. It wasn't the bird of prey. It wasn't the nacelles that moved. It was just the wings that moved. There, it made no sense for those nacelles to move at all. There was no logical reason for them to do so. But if I had to pick one, the USS Daedalus. That's we're going back to the original series. The ship model is literally a bottle of like a bottle of soda or something with I can only imagine would have been a giant styrofoam ball on the end of it and then like two cigar holders for its nacelles. It is one of the most generic bad models of a starship you'd ever want to see. And the best part is, in Star Trek Online, they copied it exactly for the ship in the game. It looks it's like you can literally the ship in the game. You can actually you know how they'll put grooves on the lids to make it easier to grip and turn the lid. Those grooves are on that part on the ship in the game. It's absolutely hilarious. But yeah, it's just a bad model for that they used for that ship in the original series. I know they were on a limited budget, but they could have done better. It's just so silly looking. The ship literally looks like it was cobbled together by going through the garbage. And yes, it is a science ship. I mean, honest to God, if you look at all the worst designs, particularly the Federation ships, they're all science ships. You got the Oberth class, which would have been the USS Grisham from Star Trek 3. The saucer section looks like a thing of Jiffy Pop almost. And it's got this, the whole thing's weird shape. I'm pretty sure. See if I can find a picture of the one ship. Okay. But this is the USS Daedalus. You got a bottle for the hull. You can actually see the ridges where you would grip the lid to turn it. And then the nacelles look like cigar holders. And then this probably would have been a styrofoam ball or something that they decorated. But that's what they made it out of. And you can tell by that is a bottle to something by looking at it. Just, and that's a good picture of it, by the way. I've seen
Probably a
worse.
thermos.
Huh?
That is probably a thermos.
Maybe. Packrest said, looks like a microphone with a thermos attached to it.
Yeah, it looks like a Yeti snowball.
Yeah, but they didn't exist when this would have been made.
It's an early prototype.
Mm. Moose says he's disappointed the bottle's not a Jack Daniels bottle. He says we got 8 people watching on X. Yeah, that's the USS Daedalus. They did make an updated version. I forget the name of it. Same basic shape, but it doesn't look like it's made out of a bottle. It's more. They actually made 2 because there's one that would have been the designs like the original cast movies design ship, and then they have one that looks like it would have been about the time of the Enterprise D. And those ones actually look like they were designed from the ground up to be ships, not other products that were cobbled together to make a ship, like this one looks like. Anyway, that's my choice for the worst looking ship right there. Wow, we've been going for almost 2 hours now. All right. Favorite character from Star Trek? Where did my logo go? Foss, favorite character?
I'm thinking. Gary can go first.
All right, Gary, favorite character?
It's a toughie. Let's go with one that didn't last too long. Tasha Yar. She was fun.
She had a half Romulan daughter who was the same age as her because
Well,
of time travel.
she complained and they killed her off with an oil slick.
Mm-hmm. Then they brought her back as her daughter, who was half Romulan. Packrat says Scotty. Barbecue's getting his series confused. He says the Slee Stacks. All right, Foss, you make up your mind yet?
I would have to go Kirk.
That's not a bad choice.
I mean, if they had stuck with Pike past the pilot, I probably would have said Pike. But I guess Kirk.
I'm going to go with Benjamin Sisko with the caveat of it being Dominion War era Sisko.
I put him as number 2. For captains, he's definitely number 2.
He was pretty badass during the
wait.
Dominion War.
I'll put Kirk as 1, but close is the one dude from the other show. The Taylor from Deep Space Nine.
Oh, shit. I know who you're talking about. I can't think of his damn name. You know, the best part is I was just talking to him in the game earlier today.
Garrick.
Yeah, Garrick.
He is one of the most compelling characters in Star Trek, I think.
Oh, yeah. He's got his backstory and everything is. They did a really good job.
And the actor who played him did an outstanding job.
Yeah. Garrick probably has the best backstory of any character in Star Trek, honestly.
I'll say Kirk for sentimental reasons, but Garrick is right there.
Yeah, his character building in that show was great. Seems like a meek little Taylor, but dude was a badass.
We gonna do least favorite? That's
Yes, we're
easy.
all right. Gary, least favorite.
Wesley Crusher. God.
Boss.
I didn't have as big a problem with Crusher as everybody else seems to. Um, I will say anything from the that reverse dimension outside of the original series. They relied on it way too much. It shouldn't have been used more than they did in the original. But everybody, every series seemed to use it.
Mm,
They're terrible characters.
they're better characters in Star Trek Online than they ever were in any of the shows. The Mirror Universe people, they actually make the Mirror Universe look threatening in the game.
And give me a second to think about it, an actual single character.
Can I pick the whole entire cast of Star Trek Starfleet Academy? Those people are insufferable. The entire cast.
I I'm excluding all of that because I haven't seen any of it, and I choose not to acknowledge it.
Remember, that's the one where one of the characters walks up to the doctor, who is the hologram doctor from Voyager, and says, "I think I swallowed my comm badge."
I mean, out of those, it would have been Michael Byrne, good at everything. Um,
Mm,
whatever century she's in, Jesus.
yeah,
But
yeah.
uh,
Starfleet Academy also has the gay Klingon that walks around in a dress and had two daddies. That the one race vomits glitter on that show. I'm not kidding. The one race on that show vomits glitter.
Now, if we want to go with most useless character, how about Yeoman Janice Rand from the original series, whose only duty seemed to be to carry a clipboard around?
Yeah, going back
well,
to
those
the
are
whole eye candy character, she was the
important
epitome
Uh-huh.
of
information.
that.
Well, Roddenberry was a horn dog. When he
Mm,
was laying out Star Trek, he went through every species and figured out how they would have sex. But I'll say Janeway is probably my least favorite character.
yeah, I can't stand her. Oh, you know what else we find out in Star Trek Starfleet Academy? Since somebody brought up the whole sex thing, Klingons have two dicks apparently, and we find that out because the gay Klingon says something about it.
Two Live Moo is talking friends. Miss Chandler Bong.
Mm-hmm. Starfleet Academy is just a weird show. Starfleet Academy is like a weird parody of Star Trek, but was actually a Star Trek titled show. The Orville was more of a Star Trek show than Starfleet Academy was. And that was
It
an actual parody.
it was better than Discovery,
Yeah.
and it had actors from Star Trek in it. It's,
Mm-hmm. You know, it's a shame that Ron Wayne's not in the chat for this show. I know damn well he'd want to have some input.
I'm curious on Pack Rat's Attic. Said Q. Is that for best or worst characters? I
I
liked
don't
Q.
know. He would have had to have put that for worst. It was only 4 minutes ago. 5 now. Just clock just flipped. I kind of liked Q.
Or if we're including aliens, Harry Mudd.
He had women trouble.
Mm.
He
Yeah,
said
he said.
worst.
Yeah, he said worst.
Ah, I liked Q.
Mm-hmm. I thought Q was a good character. Played really well by John Delancey.
Yeah.
According to Retcon, which series had the first member of the Q continuum?
Well, if you believe that on the original series, that that's a less evolved character.
That kid. They he's been retcon. The kid and the people that come to get him are retconned as being part of the Q continuum. The one that would throw a temper tantrum and do bad things to people.
Well, I've seen God, the one that looked like Liberace. I've seen people say that that's a before they had evolved into what they were in Next Generation.
Oh, the retcon is that the kid I'm talking about and the people that come to get him, the kid that had all the powers, that he was actually a member of the Q continuum. That's where the people that came up with Q and his people came up with the idea that they based him off of them and then retconned him into being one of them. Moose says him and his wife are celebrating their 34th wedding anniversary as of yesterday. Today is mine and Amy's 27th anniversary. Couldn't really do anything because she's got to work tomorrow.
Oh, Trelane. That's who I was thinking of in the original series. That's who I've seen people say that was an
Possible.
early Q.
Yeah, it's a possibility too. I mean, there's a few people that you could lump into possibly being Q.
I could kind of see. I think the one you're talking about made a little more sense
Mhm.
than Trelane.
Well, another thing that's going around lately is that Enterprise may get a sequel series where Scott Bakula's character, Captain Archer, is now the president of the Federation.
Eh,
Um, well, one good thing is it won't be a Kurtzman series. So it might have a chance if he's not involved with it. Right now, he's the one, supposedly the one thing that's holding it up because of his contract. Apparently, Scott Bakula said he'd come back and reprise his role, and so did a few other members of the cast. So might be might be something that could save the franchise.
I don't know. It just I don't know anything about it, but it just doesn't seem like a good idea to me. I'd rather have Red Foreman as president of the Federation.
He already was.
Dumbass.
Which one of the movies was it that he was president of the Federation?
Undiscovered country. I would also like to say congratulations to Moo. This year is going to be our 25th, I think, probably.
Don't let her hear you say that.
Well, no, when we got married, I told her, "Hey, I'm gonna forget your birthday. I'm gonna forget our anniversary. So don't get mad."
Oh, did I ever tell you my theory about Enterprise?
I don't know.
It's the unofficial sequel to Quantum Leap.
Eh,
Yeah, there's a reason why I say this. Scott Bakula's character, Captain Archer, is actually Sam Beckett leaped into him. If you remember backdoor on Quantum Leap, the whole having to be within Sam's timeline got screwed up when him and Al changed places. And the
well,
end of okay,
so, no, go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say, at the last episode of Quantum Leap, it states that Sam never gets home. The reason why he leapt too far into the future, and Siggy couldn't keep track of where he was, and they didn't know where he was. They couldn't communicate with him with using Al because he was too far into the future, and so he got stuck and couldn't figure out what he had to do to leap. So he got stuck being Captain Archer for the rest of his life.
The only problem with that is the beginning of Enterprise didn't start with him looking in the mirror and saying, "Oh boy."
Yeah, it's just a theory. Everybody else saw him as somebody else. We just saw him as Sam Beckett. Packer said he can't forget Sheila's birthday. It's a few days from his. Yeah, that would be bad. That would be bad.
I have forgotten mine.
I feel sorry
But
for my son-in-law.
oh no,
If
sorry. Go ahead.
if my son-in-law forgets my daughter's anniversary, he also forgets her birthday. They got married on her birthday. But I told him he lucked out. Now he's only got to buy her one gift. Of course, I got a dirty look from her when I said it. But hold on. Sorry, my daughter had to tell me something. This isn't the Watergate deal, Gary.
It's not? Oh, no.
No, no.
Damn it.
How long have you been doing this?
Do what? Oh,
2 hours
2 hours
and
and
12.
12 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to call it unless you guys got something else you want to talk about.
Unless you're going to do your bracket.
I didn't have a bracket.
He doesn't do show prep.
Ah, that's right. He told us.
So I'll take it you guys don't have anything else.
I
That
can't
was
say too much. I have to do another show less than 24 hours from now. So
Yeah. All right. Foss, anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
On my community tab, I put up a picture of a jar of 45 Colt. I hand loaded, and it's a contest. How heavy is that jar? I'm going to run it through 11:59 p.m. Saturday, the whatever the next Saturday is, and whoever gets it first correctly, or after time runs out, is the closest, will win a prize package.
All right. Sounds good. So
And
get over to Foss's community tab on his YouTube channel and see if you can win something. All right. Thanks for being on, Foss. Appreciate it.
I've got a video coming out
Oh,
tomorrow
do
too.
you? Okay.
The Cimarron 1887 lever action shotgun.
Ooh, fancy.
That's
All
it.
right. Okay. Thanks for being on. Giz, about you.
well, you got to appreciate a channel that releases videos and has giveaways every once in a while. That's pretty cool. All channels should do that. Uh, just saying. See, I have a show tomorrow night at 9 o'clock p.m. Central on the at Gizzard Gary channel. So, Foul Territory is the name of it. So, check that out. And thanks for having me.
Yep. As for
Thank
me,
you.
oh, sorry. What'd you say?
I was just thinking, Moo. He put out the links for the channels.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Move. As for me, I really don't have much of anything. It's going to be a busy week, so I'm not going to have. I wanted to get the gun belt video out this week, and then it was like looking at the schedule, was like, oh shit, I'm not gonna be able to do that this week. So probably have to wait till next week for that, and then that's about it. So yeah, I got to put that off a week, and so sometimes things just don't work out where you can put out a video when you want to. Sure,
You
Gizzard
know,
and Foss can attest to that. So,
you pile up a whole bunch of tomorrows, and all you end up with
mm,
is a bunch of yesterdays.
mm-hmm. But, yep. So on that note, we will bid y'all adieu for this week, and we'll catch y'all later. Good night, everybody, and again, thank you to Ron 2A Matters for testing the video feed, or not the video feed, the caller thing. Even though he was the only one that called, or we did have one person who said he tried to call and it didn't work, but at least we got one person for it to work. So as they work on this, hopefully that will improve. But yeah, we will catch y'all next week. Have a good night.